And let's see if we can finish the 12th chapter of The Revenge of the Wizard's Ghost. Fergie and the professor are wandering through a church looking for a boss that has the ensign French on it. A boss is like a little disc that goes between the arches of the church, and they are feeling rather uncomfortable as they do this. "I'm not feeling terribly calm myself," muttered the professor as he maneuvered the light beam along the ceiling. "It may just be nerves, but I have the funny feeling that there is somebody here in the church with us, somebody who hates us. On the other hand, I'll be darned if I'll be scared away by anybody or anything until, aha! By the holy and invisible powers, I think we've found it." Fergie looked up. Far above on the ceiling was what appeared to be a stone disc with a painted shield on it. The beam of the searchlight hovered over the shield, and Fergie could see little silver blobs on a background of midnight blue. Excitedly, the professor lifted the binoculars and peered up. "Hooray!" he whooped. "There are lilies! Hooray for the lilies of France ancient! We've found it! We've found it!" As Fergie watched in amazement, the professor danced a little jig on the church floor, but in the middle of his dancing he stopped. Angrily, he snapped off the searchlight and cursed loudly. "Blast! Wouldn't you know it? There's always something that can go wrong." Fergie didn't know what to say. I thought everything was okay. Isn't it? "Oh, sure, everything's just ginger peachy," growled the professor sarcastically. "Everything's fine except for one little bitsy detail. We're down here and the shield is up there. How in the devil are we going to get up to it?" Fergie's heart sank. He glanced up again. He understood in an instant what the professor meant. The ceiling over their heads was very high, too high to be reached even with a stepladder. If the professor was right, the Urim and the Thummim were under the shield, but at this distance they couldn't do any poking or prying. They could only stare. Fergie set down his tool bag. He felt like crying, but he fought back the tears. There had to be some way. While the professor stood fuming and swearing in the darkness, Fergie moved the beam of the small flashlight around. And then his heart leaped. Not far away, a scaffold had been set up. It was made of crisscrossing steel pipes and boards. Had been laid across the top to make a level platform. The scaffold was a tall one. It reached almost all the way up to the ceiling. Unfortunately, it wasn't right under the stone disc, but it just might be close enough. "Hey, Professor!" Fergie exclaimed, tugging at his sleeve fiercely. "Look! It's absolutely perfect! Look what I found!" "What is it now?" asked the professor wearily. He was still sunk in despair. "It's whatchamacallit," said Fergie excitedly. "I mean, it's a scaffold-type thing, the kind painters use. You know. Come on, look at it." The professor turned his head and looked, and then he brightened up immediately. "Oh, my!" he exclaimed delightedly. "I see what you mean. Yes, I certainly do. Byron, you are a genius, an absolute genius. Bring the tool bag. We're going up." A steel ladder was bolted to the side of the scaffold. Once again, the two of them switched lights. This was done so that the professor would have both hands free to climb. Fergie hooked the handle of the searchlight into his belt, and with the tool bag in one hand, he started up. When he got near the top, he threw the bag onto the platform and pulled himself up after it. Fergie heaved a deep sigh of relief. He had made it. But then he realized that he had not heard the professor climbing behind him. Where was the old man, anyway? "Hey, Professor!" Fergie called. "Come on up. Are you okay?" A voice answered out of the darkness below. "I'm all right, but I'm afraid my poor flashlight has had it. I was looking around for a mop handle or something to poke at the disc with, and I dropped the stupid gizmo. And now the switch won't work. Shine your light on the ladder, and I'll be up in 5 seconds." From deep below the church came a long, ominous rumbling noise. The floor shook, and the scaffold creaked and swayed. "Good Lord, it's an earthquake!" exclaimed the professor in a shocked voice. "We've got to get out of here. The whole bloody building is going to come down on our heads." And that is the end of Chapter 12.